The Kia Sorento may not have been the company's first entry into the SUV segment. However, with sales approaching about 100,000 units every year, it is without a doubt one of the most important and lucrative models they make. As you can see today, I am not at the Geneva Motor Show or the New York Auto Show because we are all still quarantined from the coronavirus. So I am simply here at my studio in my office just outside the DC area, where Kia has just taken the wraps off of the completely redesigned 2021 Sorento. So let's take a first look. So for the longest time, the Sorento has been the company's best-selling model here in America. And of course, honestly, with everybody wanting to buy crossovers, it makes sense for Kia to invest heavily in an all-new version of the car. I mean, look at the success of the rest of the company's lineup, from the Telluride, which is also known as the Telluride. I just drove the all-new Kia Seltos, their new entry-level SUV. So the Sorento fits very nicely into the company's portfolio. And this is honestly one of the original SUVs the company made. It traces its roots back to 2002. So it's such a long history with the company. Kia obviously wanted to make as many changes to the Sorento in order to kind of give it that same Telluride swag. The Telluride has been a very successful vehicle for Kia. And as you can see, looking at the all-new version of the Sorento, the front fascia definitely has the familiar corporate face. The tiger nose grille has kind of been enlarged, it's been widened, and it stretches now into the actual headlights, which, by the way, all the Sorentos will now come with full LED headlights. They're an LED low and high beam along with LED daytime running lights. There's definitely a certain new premium look to it. If you guys looked at the previous generation Sorento, even the refreshed one, I wasn't really the biggest fan of the styling of that car, especially at the front fascia. It had these very interesting looking amber color for the daytime running lights, which I didn't particularly love, but from times the front end of the car just kind of reminded me of a minivan. That is so not the case with this new generation model. You can see it's got full LEDs all around. The tiger nose grille is a little bit wider, it's a little bit more broad. It has a much more upscale premium look to it. The lower front fascia also houses these new LED fog lights with what it looks like functional air vents to help with aerodynamics and for cooling. And Kia says the all-new Sorento is riding on an all-new platform. It's about 0.4 inches wider overall versus the previous generation. And you can really see that when you're looking at the front end of this car. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it in person. Moving to the side profile of the Sorento, you can see just like the Telluride, Kia adopted kind of more of a boxier look. And the boxy look is really successful with a lot of Americans. Just take a look at the awards that the Telluride gets for its design. And to make the Sorento look a little bit more upscale and just kind of more appealing for the new generation, the fourth generation, Kia did stretch the wheelbase of this car by about 1.4 inches at a little over 110 inches long. This is definitely right in the middle in terms of the mid-size SUV segment vehicles. The Telluride still has a wheelbase that's about 4 inches longer still. At an overall length of 189.5 inches long, it's also been stretched by the overall length by about 0.4 inches as well. So not that much longer. The Sorento definitely still takes its place as a mid-size entry right between the Sportage, which is honestly a little bit too small, and of course the full-size Telluride. I imagine whenever Kia decides to redesign the Sportage, they're going to make that vehicle larger as well to reflect its new position in the lineup. Now, of course, there are new wheel designs with an all-new platform. Kia says you get a choice between 17 all the way up to a 20-inch wheel. This particular one that I'm showing you here is a European spec model, although the Kia says that they aren't going to be changing too much for the US market versions. The 20-inch wheels that you can see on this one aren't really my favorite in terms of the directional spoke designs, but I'm really happy to see that Kia is putting a 20-inch wheel. I noticed that the tires are also relatively wide. These are riding on 245 width tires. Kia didn't actually have any specs for the ground clearance of this vehicle, but it will continue, of course, to have a four-wheel, fully independent suspension. And Kia says that you can take your pick between either a 5 or 7-passenger version. Currently, the Sorento is standard with 7 seats here in America, so I have no doubt in my mind that Kia will continue to offer the third row. Only time will tell if they'll still make it as standard equipment here in the States. At the rear of the new Sorento, you can see there are also some design cues that Kia is taking from the Telluride, specifically the taillights, which have a full LED design. Although they are a little bit more broad, they're kind of like 2 tiers versus the Telluride, which kind of has a thinner look to the taillight strip. I particularly like the new design. Again, the previous generation Sorento to me looked like a minivan from certain angles. This one just has a much more masculine, much more rugged appearance to it. Underneath, in the lower rear fascia, you can see there's a lot of silver accents here. Now keep in mind, I am not seeing this vehicle in person, But you guys are kind of getting my thoughts on what I think of it in pictures. I'm noticing that Kia didn't do any kind of exposed exhaust tips, although the rear bumper fascia tries to make it look like it has these fake exhaust tips, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. You can see, just like the other vehicles in their lineup, Kia is spelling out Sorento at the back in the middle of the tailgate, which I'm not particularly sure I like the positioning of that. I'll have to wait until I see it in person to make my final judgments. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the overall design. I definitely think this is a huge improvement over the kind of boring vanilla minivan looks of the previous generation. So underneath the hood of the new Sorento, remember, this is an all new platform. Kia is introducing all new engines for the Sorento, and it's one of their first SUVs to be getting kind of an electrified lineup. The engines at launch here in America will be either a 2.5 liter turbocharged direct injection 4-cylinder. I've actually sampled that powertrain in the Sonata N-Line, which was kind of like an early production spec model. That engine, I can tell you, definitely has a lot of torque. It'll be paired with an 8-speed wet dual clutch transmission. Now in the Sorento, Kia is estimating it'll make around 277 horsepower and about 310 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are pretty much up there in terms of the class. It definitely is gonna have a lot of torque. You guys should keep in mind that a 6-cylinder engine will probably not be coming back to the Sorento. You can look at the current generation if you guys want that, which still offers the 3.3 liter naturally aspirated V6. A Sorento hybrid will also be joining the lineup here in America, and that has been confirmed. It will basically pair up a 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with about 177 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. That'll be paired, of course, exclusively with an electric motor that produces around 59 horsepower on its own, 195 pound-feet of torque. Now, when you combine the outputs of both the gas and electric motor, it should make around 227 horsepower and around 258 pound-feet of torque. Those are actually very impressive numbers. And unlike a lot of competitors who use a CVT, the Sorento will use a 6-speed conventional automatic, which should be nice for a lot of you enthusiasts who don't like the feel of a CVT. However, with a hybrid powertrain, CVTs tend to be more efficient. It just kind of pairs well with the overall efficiency package of a hybrid. So I'll have to wait and reserve judgment until I actually drive the thing. Kia, of course, does not have any fuel economy numbers for us yet. And in Europe, the company did show off a 2.2 liter diesel, which makes around 200 horsepower and around 330-ish pound-feet of torque. Sadly, that powertrain will not be coming to America. You can take your pick basically between front or all-wheel drive. Kia says because this is a new chassis, the Sorento weighs just under 200 pounds less versus the previous generation, so it should make for one of the best handling and best driving mid-size SUVs in the segment when it does go on sale at the end of this year. So moving on to the inside of the 2021 Sorento, you can see Kia has really been killing it lately in terms of their overall designs on the exterior and for the interior, where they're really stepping up the game in terms of quality, in terms of technology. And as you can see, the Sorento brings a lot of the new stuff, a lot of the updated stuff that we've seen from their other products, and introduces some newer things as well. The interior itself, just from these photos, looks sophisticated. It looks very upscale. It offers 2 LCD displays, which I'm imagining will be available at the top end trim line of the Sorento. You can see the center stack houses a 12.3-inch LCD touchscreen display that is, of course, running the latest version of Kia's Uvo infotainment system. Front and center of the driver and the instrument panel will be a 10.3-inch full digital display. As you can see, the digital display will obviously be customizable. You should be able to change the overall layout and the colors depending on whatever drive mode you're going to be in. Unlike some of the other newer Hyundai Kia products, I actually really like the design of the steering wheel of this car. The steering wheel kind of just has this interesting contrast stitching to it. It's got a very nice textured look to it with all the buttons on there, which the buttons does look a little bit button crazy. I'll have to wait until I actually sit in the car and drive it for myself. But I also like some of the new design languages here with the tablet style screens, of course, which replaces the older design layout of the previous generation. There's a lot of texturized aluminum trim in here, and the dashboard vents look particularly interesting because they have a 2-level design to them where there's actually a lower vent in there, which does look relatively strange in the photos. So I'll have to wait until I actually drive the car and sit in it in person. Now, in terms of the overall features, Kia says their DriveWise driver assistance package, of course, is going to be standard. You're going to have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and an 8-inch touchscreen will be the standard size diameter if you guys don't go for the higher trim levels. You can see this particular one here has a rotary shifter here that I'm assuming this is probably the hybrid version, so it's going to control that 6-speed automatic transmission. You can also take your pick between, it looks like heated and cooled seats will also be available. A lot of stitching here and there. The seats have that kind of diamond quilted texture to it. So an overall aspect of the interior definitely looks good in just the photos. It's really showing that Kia is taking this segment very seriously, and the new Sorento could very much raise the bar whenever that car does go on sale toward the end of this year. So obviously, because I don't have the car here, I'm not going to be able to get inside the back seat or the third row and show you guys what the space is like there in relation to my 5'7" frame. But from looking at this photo here, you can see this particular one has the second row and the third row folded down. There is one seat left up for, I guess, viewing purposes. Now, Kia says that they did improve the overall cargo capacity of this new version. They quoted it in liters at about 821 liters for the 5-passenger version, around 910 liters for the 7-passenger version. That translates to around 28 cubic feet or around 32 cubic feet when you guys convert it over to what we use here in the US in terms of the actual measurements. Now, those numbers are relatively small. I'm going to assume that is not the maximum cargo when you have the second row seats folded. The current generation Sorento is one of the larger ones in the segment because remember, it was a mid-sized car at a little over 70 cubic feet. I would expect this new one to be at least at that point, or maybe even a little bit larger. The SAE did kind of change the way that we measure the overall space, so this could be a little bit smaller if you guys look at that. So we'll have to wait and see what the final numbers are. I expect this thing to have at least 70 cubic feet of space total, and in terms of the second row legroom, most vehicles in this segment have around 39 inches of legroom. It's one of the reasons why you kind of step out of a compact SUV because you need more cargo space, you need more rear seat space. I'm going to assume that the third row in this vehicle is going to be pretty small, so be sure to look at Kia's Telluride if you guys actually need a third row that can fit full-size adults. All right, guys, so there you have it, our first look on the 2021 Kia Sorento. Keep in mind, this is the European spec model. The US version, Kia will hopefully show it to us next month. It should be pretty similar to the European spec model. The current generation starts at around just under $27,000. I would expect this new version to obviously be more expensive. How much more expensive, we don't know until Kia actually decides to release those figures. The current one, you could also price it out to be just around $45,000, $46,000. So that is Kia Telluride money. So obviously Kia is going to try to make the new Sorento a little bit more like a baby Telluride. It's giving that little bit more of that swag. And for those of you who don't necessarily need as big of an SUV with, you know, the ability to carry full-size adults in the third row, the new Sorento could very much be worth a look, especially if you guys are comparing it to the Ford Edge, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, a Subaru Outback. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this first look on the 2021 Kia Sorento. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.